Hey, good evening, everybody. John Bob Millwright here again with some more chain ramblings, odds and ends, and whatever pops off the top of my head about chain. I've been doing a couple little videos about square filing, and that might be putting the cart before the horse. Let's go over a little bit of how the chain actually cuts. So, if you look at your actual chain itself, there are a series of cutters, drivers, side plates, in a line, in a chain, obviously. When you look at the end of the cutter itself, you'll have left and right cutters. And one cutter will form half the chip. So as this is being dragged through the woods by the power saw, this cutter is going to form half the bottom of the chip and cut one side of it. The cutter coming behind it is going to cut this height again, this depth again, and peel the other side of the chip off to make a complete chip. So they have to work in pairs to form a complete chip. That chip is cut by, from your working corner back. That is what actually shears the wood fibers. This depth gauge, more importantly, the distance from the top of your raker or depth gauge or whatever you choose to call it right here, that distance from here to here controls the thickness of your chip. So if these are ground down too far, your chip is too thick, your saw is going to bog, it's going to have a really chattery, jumpy cut. If this distance from here to the top of your working corner is too shallow, then your saw is going to make dust. It won't actually form a chip. I don't use any other type of gauges except for a raker gauge, because I want every one of these on every single tooth to be the same distance from the top of my raker to the top of my working corner. Either side, both sides, because like I said, this tooth is forming half the chip, the other tooth is forming half the chip. So I want that thing to take the same depth of cut on every single tooth. That'll give me a smoother cut, a faster cut, and a more effective cut. Chains that are sharp and have their raker set properly let the saw run cooler. They let it run in its proper RPM range. It's a lot more comfortable for you, the operator, to run a chain that has the right raker adjustment. I'm not sponsored by these people in any way. These are the ones I actually buy. They say depth gauge, made in Italy. They're 30 thousandths on one side, 25 thousandths on the other. Depending on the type of wood and how big a saw I'm running, that'll have a direct result on what one of these I use. If I'm out there sawing with my 55 Rancher, I'm going to set all the rakers to 25 thousandths. If I've got my 660 out, it can handle 30 thousandths. It's a lot of variables such as wood. If I'm cutting pine with that same 55, I might be able to go to a 30 thousandths raker. If I'm cutting oak, it may have to be 25. A lot of it depends on the saw, and you'll just have to find out what works for you. So this raker gauge is your buddy. It'll help you keep your chains cutting straight, and it'll help your saw run cooler because it's not having to work as hard to drive an overfiled raker through the wood. So more to come on how to actually use this in just a minute.